Hi, welcome to the PhD Journey Unplugged podcast. My name is Dr. Sarah Gordon, and I am joined today by, and I say this with so much like just truth and humility, I am with a legend and with a very distinguished human being, Dr. Stephen Jonas. And I
Well,
want
it's
to
just, go
welcome you
ahead.
to the show.
Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me. I don't know that I've ever been previously referred to as a legend, but I really like it.
Okay. Well, let me tell our audience first how we met and give a little bit of background about you. And then we're going to talk today about Dr. Jonas's journey through the sport of triathlon, well, skiing first and the sport of triathlon and how he started as a physician. And just we're going to just talk through it. I want to frame this conversation in terms of aging successfully and how important sports participation was for you in that journey. But before we get started, I want to share with people how we met because we've had such a beautiful connection. We've never met in person,
Correct.
but when I was doing my dissertation research, I believe it all started with Terry Vanderwert, put me in contact with Don Ardell, and Don Ardell put me in contact with you. And so it was like 1 degree of separation, I think they say, but it all led me to you. And when I was starting to formulate my idea for my dissertation research, which focused on exercise motivation and perspectives of successful aging, you
Uh-huh.
were one of the first people I had a conversation about it with. And I think we stayed on the phone for at least an hour. It was such a great conversation. You were so encouraging to me, open to sharing with me. And that's how our friendship started. And I'm really grateful for that at that point, because was starting out, my journey as a research student, getting my dissertation. And since then, it's been about 2 years, I think. We've had multiple phone conversations. And I think as I've gotten to know you, I mean, I'm even more honored and humbled because your background is, I know you're humble, but you're a physician, you were involved with the American College of Sports Medicine. You've written dozens of books, you've published dozens of papers. I will tell you, I know, I have to say it because I want people to understand. I get emails. I'm on some type of research with triathlon and sports participation. I get emails with research titles sent to my email all the time. And there your name comes across my emails. Oh, there's Dr. Jonas.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You've done so much. I can't even list it all. You've been in the academic world. You had a very successful career as a professor, Stony Brook University, I believe. He wrote the first book on triathlon for ordinary people. Just wanted to go out and try it. It's been in print since 1986. It's a great book. And I just, you've been doing it a long time and you're a remarkable human being. And I'm glad to call you my friend. And I'm here. I'm happy you're here today. So welcome to the show, Dr. Jonas.
Thank you so much, and thanks so much for the very, very generous introduction, Sharon. Very, very much appreciated.
Well, I appreciate you and giving me confidence along the way. So,
I'm very happy that I was able to do that. Yeah. You
mhm.
know,
Great, great, great
I was
conversations.
honored that you considered me to be one of your dissertation advisors. It's just really terrific. I mean, we never met. It's likely we never will, except this way. But I'm really honored.
Well, you
Really
never
honored.
know. I've been thinking about taking a road trip and going out there and
Oh, hey,
thanking
that'd be
everybody
terrific.
that, helped me, who held me up through that journey. So you never know. So let's do this. Let's start with this, Dr. Jonas. Do you mind me to just to kind of reference the length of time you've been in the sport. Can we tell people your age or age range?
Oh, I love my age. I
Okay.
absolutely love my age. I am going to be 90 years old on November 22nd of this year.
And
Yeah.
you look so fit and healthy. It's
Well,
incredible. So take note of that, people. Gonna be 90. Okay.
43 years of triathlon racing. That's one of the factors. I had good genes,
Well,
longevity, but yeah, but to look like this and feel like this, yeah, 43 years of triathlon racing to 257 triathlons and duathlons.
incredible.
Starting when I was 43.
So let's go back to the beginning, okay? So
Sure.
so are you from originally from New York area?
I'm from literally from New York City. I was born on the island of Manhattan in 1936.
Mhm.
I grew up there on what's called the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Went to grade school and high school, and then I stayed home, went to Columbia College, which was a very, very good decision. And then went away to Boston, really for the first time for medical school. And I was a non-athlete in grade school, high school, because, for kids, the sports, almost all the sports are hand-eye coordination sports, and I have none. I could never do them. I couldn't play tennis. I couldn't play golf. I couldn't shoot a basketball. I couldn't. If I ever hit the softball, I was very lucky. So
Okay.
I didn't do any of those sports, and I really didn't do sports. And I got into my first sport ever that I found that I could do essentially by accident. I was in my first year of medical school, and I remember I've told this story so many times that I visualize what happened. I was standing in the parking lot of the living quarters, and a couple of guys in my class who I really didn't know very well. I knew they were in my class, and I think I sort of knew them anyway. They came over to me and they said, "How would you like?" This was in February of let's see, that would have been 1959, and how would you like to go skiing? And I said, skiing is a sport for idiots, but I will try anything once. And of course, the reason they asked me was I had a car and they didn't. And that first day, we went up to a hill in New Hampshire, a ski area, and I fell and fell. And I also fell in love with the sport for
Mm.
some reason. I said, this is something I think I'm going to be able to do. I just need to take lessons. And it was late in the season, and I said, I couldn't wait for the next season to start. And then I started taking lessons, and one thing led to another. And skiing, of course, is basically a balance sport.
Okay.
It's obviously not a hand-eye coordination sport. It's a balance sport, and I have very good balance. So it became and still is the one sport that I could technically do well. I mean, I've done triathlon very well because I've done so many of them, and I've written so much about the sport, and I've helped a lot of people get into the sport and all that. But this was a sport the only sport I've ever tried that I was technically good at, and that's because it is a balance sport.
Balance. Okay.
And I skied for a very long time, and I started. I was teaching my kids how to ski, and I'm a natural teacher. Anyway, one thing led to another. I won't go into all the details, and I became a certified ski instructor. And I taught. I was what was for about 20 years. I was fortunate enough to acquire a place out in Breckenridge, Colorado, which is a great ski area and a great town. And I was what was called holiday help for the
Mhm.
ski school during spring break when they need extra instructors. And it was, so that was the skiing thing, and that was the thing I could do technically well and loved to do it. Love to do it. triathlon was how I got into triathlon was
Hmm.
different. Um, my specialty is preventive medicine. I'm what's called board certified in preventive medicine.
Okay.
I also have a Master of Public Health degree. And as I got into my academic career in the 1970s, I was doing a lot of academic writing in various aspects of preventive medicine. And also, I created the first textbook ever about the healthcare delivery system, which is still in I think it's the 16th edition. I haven't been active in it since the seventh, but it's got my name on it forever, which is really very nice. That book, that's my most successful book. That book has sold about 450,000 copies.
Say, what is the name of that book? Did you
Healthcare
say?
delivery well, it's now called Jonas Kovner, who was my most important co-editor. Healthcare delivery in the United States. It's
Okay.
published by Springer Publishing.
Okay. If anybody wants to go find it somewhere.
Yeah, that's it. So I was, but late in we have plenty of time, right? You're gonna
Yeah,
edit this.
we're gonna go as long as we
I'm
need.
so shy about talking. You've already figured.
I know.
Yeah.
All our phone conversations were always at least an hour, so we're gonna go at
Yeah.
least an
Okay.
hour, I think.
Anyway,
We're just having a
I
recorded phone conversation today.
yeah, I started going to. I was board certified, and I became board certified in preventive medicine. I started going to the annual meetings of the American College of Preventive Medicine. And of course, I was also going to the annual meetings of the American Public Health Association. And it was at an APHA meeting when these things happen, you never forget them. And of course, I've told this story over and over again. It's in Chicago, and uh, well, I'm blocking the name, but it was in a famous old arena. And on a Tuesday morning, I at eight. This I remember. It was called the Joe Louis Arena. It was named after Joe Louis.
Okay.
And I walked up one ramp at 8:30 in the morning. I can see myself going up this ramp. I was going to with a colleague and friend of mine. We're going to deliver a conversation on for public health professionals how to talk to government agents and agencies. I got to the top and I was huffing and puffing. Now that had happened many times,
Hmm.
but that time I said, this is ridiculous. You're in public health. You are totally out of shape. I had already started changing my eating habits. I said, okay, you're going to force yourself to run for 30 minutes, started out at 3 times a week. I know I'm going to hate it, but I got to do it.
Hmm.
I didn't go to the local running shoe store to get a pair of running shoes. I said, I'm sure this isn't going to last. I dug an old pair of basketball shoes that I used to play around with out of the closet. And I did it for a month. And at the end of the month, I said, not only do I not hate this, I really like this. It
Wow.
was very early.
Right.
I felt what regular exercise can do for you.
Hmm.
And I still I live at the top of the hill. In those days, I lived at the bottom of the hill in Port Jefferson Village on the North Shore of Long Island. And there, from downtown, there are two hills going up, one east, one west. And I said, all right, I'm going to try to get to actually run, well, trot up the westbound hill. I still remember how I felt when I got to the I've told the story many times, and I can see myself at the top. I went up nice and slowly. I was trotting. I
Hmm.
got to the hill. I wasn't huffing and puffing, and I said, "You did this. This is incredible. Yes, we're going to take it from here." So I continue to work out, and then uh, about 2 years later, think it was, a friend of mine said, there's a race in a really nice area of your local community. It's a 5 miler. It was in May. Why don't you race? I said, me racing? Are you kidding? He said, ah, do it. And I knew it was a fairly flat course. So I said, okay, I'll try it. And I still, I mean, I remember that race because
Amazing.
I said, okay, I'm going to try to do this in 10-minute miles. I finished in 43 minutes.
So that
Okay,
you did well.
and this is what you do at the beginning of your racing career and what I did for all of those years. When's the next race?
Wow.
So I
When's the
started doing
next race?
5Ks. When I finished my first 10K, I went off into the corner of the area where you kept all your stuff, and I started crying. I
Hmm.
could not. I mean, this kid who was a total non-athlete. I'm in my early 40s, and I finished the 10K.
It's
And
amazing.
then we had a local running club, and every Sunday morning, really nice. Jenny, you always ran somebody who ran it. I found somebody who ran at moderate speed. And we're trotting along one day. This was in probably, I don't know, January, February, or maybe it was earlier, November. Anyway, he said, I'm going to do the Long Island Marathon next May. Do you want to do it? I said, marathoning. That's like what I said about skiing at the
Right,
beginning.
right,
That's
right.
a sport for idiots. He said, well, I have a book that can help you train to get through to finish training 5 hours a week. 5 hours a week. 2 weeks later, I said, what's the name of that book?
I just was going to ask you, was it Jeff Galloway?
Jeff Galloway.
Yeah.
Jeff Galloway's book.
That's so
Jeff
funny.
Galloway opened me up to the
Mhm.
whole
I,
arena of distance racing.
that's
I started,
amazing.
I did my first marathon, uh, and uh, which was in New York City. I did New York City 5 times, trotting along, having a wonderful time. And of course, I grew up in Manhattan. So, you're running in your backyard. It's
Hmm.
just, and then it was in the spring of 1983, I saw an announcement of something that was called the Mighty Hamptons Triathlon. And it was going to be held in Sag Harbor, which I was slightly familiar with. It's out of what we call the East End of Long Island, a very pretty, very historic village. And I said, let me see. I mean, I was running. A couple of years earlier, I bought a old style bicycle just to have some variety in the training. And let me see if I can still swim. Because I was lucky enough to have gone to camp from age 6 to age 12. And one of the few things I could do reasonably well at these athletic camps was swim. So I said, all right, I'm going to go we had a nice 25-meter pool at the university. I said, I'm going to go over there and see if I can still swim. So first 25 meters crawl. Well, I don't know the order, but I did crawl, side stroke, backstroke, the back breaststroke, the
That's
arms in the water.
right.
Got out of the water and said, well, I can still do this.
Okay.
I'm going to send in an application and see if I get accepted. Well, in those days, I mean, every triathlon in those days, they were very happy to have
That's interesting.
Oh, yeah, there were about 235 people in that race.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you sent in an application. Did you mail in an application?
I mailed in an application. Well,
Okay.
couldn't do it online in those days.
Right, right.
83, sent an application, got my acceptance. Uh, and then I started working particularly on the swimming. I wanted to make it was because that first race, the distance they were a little more than what's now the Olympic distance race. It
That was a
was a
big
much,
swim.
instead of 1,500 meter swim, it was a mile and a half swim. And instead of a 10K run, it was a 10-mile run.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a big first triathlon for you.
That was a very big first triathlon.
Wow.
Yeah. So, uh, two more. I have tons of stories just from that race. Two more.
Take your time.
Um, I get off the bike and I look over, there weren't very many people in the transition area. And I look over, I happen to look over in one direction at the fence, and there's the kid's mom and my two kids who were like 7 and 8 or something like that over there. I said, oh boy. So either Lillian or Jacob, I mean, they're both in the 50s. They just told this story just the other day. I started running over to say hello, and the two of them together, Daddy, Daddy, get back out on the run.
That's amazing.
So it was a 10-mile run, but I took it easy. I was determined to finish. And I've always done this.
Hmm.
It's all what it's been for me finishing, not how fast I was able to go because I was inherently slow. So I was never going to go fast.
Hmm.
But I wanted to finish the race. And
Hmm.
I finished. And I'm standing in the transition area and I'm saying to myself, I read the three books or parts of that were available on triathlon at that time, which was amazing because it had only been founded in 1977 and this is a 1983, but they were all for how to go fast. And I said, I would like to write a book for how to just go, regardless of speed. Get out there and enjoy it. And I had a wonderful editor at W. W. Norton who had published a book of mine on medical education. His name was Eric Swenson, and he was an old-time Norton publishing house person. He was also a big league offshore ocean sailboat racer. He had a 72-foot sloop. Now, before I got into to triathlon, I had been a sailor for about 10 years. And I tell the story about Eric all the time. And I always say, you can just imagine, if you know anything about sailing, you can imagine the size of the main on a 72-foot sloop. I mean, I got up to a 34, and for me, that was a pretty big
Big.
main. But he did offshore. So I knew he was interested in racing. And I presented the idea to him, and he said, I mean, essentially said, I love it. Just write it up. And
That this one? Is that this one?
that's that book, Triathloning for Ordinary Mortals. And I came up with that title because the book is designed, and you can see it's still you can still get it new from Norton on Amazon. It was designed to help people like me get into a sport where you can have a great time in the sport without going fast. If you put winning aside and you put finishing first, and you meet so many people, and then of course with this book, numbers of times at races in the early days, I'd be in the transition area, my pictures on the back of the book, and somebody would come over to me and say, are you the doc who wrote that book?
Mm.
And I'd say, yes, I am. And they'd say, you're the reason I'm here. I mean,
And look, that's
that
amazing.
happened to me once on a bike ride.
That's amazing.
I tell these stories. I've told them numerous times that I have the pictures in my head. It was a half Ironman out of Kingston, New York. And I was on the bike, uh, and going at my usual slow pace. And somebody he wasn't that much faster, but somebody, I see it now, passes me on the left. We're on the bikes. We have helmets on. And he looks over and he says, are you the doc who wrote that book? Same thing. You're the reason I'm here. And of course, then he
Oh.
didn't wait around for me. He took off, but no, but seriously, I mean, boing, from that book and from a number of other books, that I did in the sport. and I wrote for, as you know, I wrote a monthly column for USA Triathlon for years until they for very good they ended that feature. But it was first it was printed, then it was online, and they decided to bring that to an end. So, but I don't know, like I think I did 130, something like that, or 102, or
Mhm.
and it just and I kept racing. I just kept racing and until the I did my last race in 2018 in Asbury Park, and I like to tell this story, which you may or may not include. What I really enjoy, I did was a wonderful duathlon and triathlon run by Special Olympics of New Jersey, where they trained up special kids, and they had special kids and regular people racing at the same time. I mean, can you
Mm.
imagine? Just
Powerful, powerful stuff.
powerful, powerful. Uh, and what I used to, I did the duathlon there. I didn't do the tri because I swimming in the ocean was not the
Yeah,
last time,
Dr. Jonas, just real quick.
please.
I remember you said once, who founded duathlon? I can't remember. Were you friends with that gentleman? I don't remember his
Uh,
name. One of our conversations,
right. Who came up with the idea of duathlon?
you explained to me how it came about, but I didn't mean to interrupt your train of
Yeah,
thought.
no, that's,
We can come back to
yeah, hopefully. Yeah,
it.
where did duathlon come from?
But I remember we
Uh,
had a conversation about it. It was very
yeah,
fascinating. So I just highly recommend to our listeners, like, Google the history of duathlon and triathlon, and it's just such a great history to it.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Hmm.
I tell you, I wrote the only modern book for triathletes only. So it's probably in there at the beginning
Okay.
where it came from.
I just remember
But
we had a conversation once. I thought, wow, that's so fascinating.
yeah.
Okay, so
But
back to
the
Asbury Park.
story I told the story it was in Asbury Park, New Jersey.
Okay.
And I every time I went out there, I cornered somebody to tell them this story that if there was an event that took place in 1907, that if that event had not taken place, I would not be here today in Asbury Park because probably in the spring of 1907, in a hotel lounge in Asbury Park, my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, was playing the piano, and my paternal grandfather came over to say hello. And if
Oh,
that, yeah,
you're gonna make me
I mean, and
cry.
that, yeah, it makes me cry too. I
Oh,
mean, that really happened. I mean, my father loved to tell that. My father was a great storyteller. He was a great man, but he was also a great story, and he loved to tell that story. And
it's
and
amazing.
people would say, oh, so yeah.
Well, it's
Um,
funny because I had a coach on about a month ago, and he was saying that they had just done the Asbury Park triathlon. I was like, and I was thinking his name's Paul Capuzzo, and
I think I know that name.
I'm gonna send him a link to this episode so he hears
Yeah,
this
I
kind of
think I know that
discussion.
name. I'm not
Yeah,
sure, but
he's in the New Jersey area, and I was like, oh, didn't something happen in Asbury Park? And he's like, yes, Bruce Springsteen. And now it's
yeah,
Dr. Jonas. That's where it all
yeah. Well, yeah,
started.
Bruce Springsteen's much more important than I am, but
Okay,
yeah,
so let's
but
go back. So Asbury
sure.
Park. So how did you do that day?
Well, I did a number of them. I probably did four or five of them, and it was. I mean, I always went slowly, and I enjoyed myself. And of course, I was getting older, so I went even slower. And what turned out to be my last race was in Asbury Park in
Oh, that's so
2018.
interesting.
Yeah, and that has an interesting story
Huh.
related to it too. Um, my first Ironman years before that was on Cape Cod. And when I was
Wait,
way
did you just say your first Ironman?
my first Ironman, yeah, it was
Okay, so
out of
how old
Miami.
were you when you did your first Ironman? You know?
That was 80, 80. Let's see, my first Ironman was 86. So I was 50. I
Okay.
was
So
about 50.
as we're talking through your story and you're sharing, and this is so delightful. I love it. So we're gonna just take our time with it.
You know,
You
it's so difficult for me to talk. You figured that out already.
that's, well, me too. That's why we don't get along.
Right.
Okay, so for our listeners, Dr. Jonas started by saying he was at a conference, he was walking up a hill, and he could hardly breathe. And he decided to start running in an old pair of basketball shoes. And then he stuck with it, consistency, and he said, "Wow, this feels good." And he just stuck with it, and I love how it's continued to build.
Well,
And
and I
it's a
started racing and I
remarkable
started with
story.
5Ks and then,
And
and
now we're
then,
at Ironman. So take us through Ironman. That's
okay.
incredible. Okay.
Um, I, uh, it was the summer of 1986
Hmm.
and I came across, an announcement of an organization which was very, young then, but is really huge now, which, oh gosh, blocking. Anyway, it'll come to me. That ran essentially an open-ended Olympics for older athletes. All you had to do was pay your entry fee, and you went. And I saw it, and it'll come to me. And I've got the poster from the year I did it down in the basement. So uh, it was in Portland, Oregon. Um, No, no, wait a minute. That's not my first triathlon. My first triathlon was, oh yes, that organization had a series of races. It was very, very, very early days for in Toronto, Canada, and they had, I don't know, I think they had a marathon. I did the half marathon, and I had never run that long a distance. And I did a bike race in the event. The internet, I forget what it's called. Anyway, they're very big. They're huge now. And but I'd done my first long race, and I had seen an announcement of an Ironman. I knew what Ironman was. Of course, everybody in the sport knew. And in fact, one, not, one of the events that motivated me eventually to get into triathlon was that very famous finish in the 1979 Hawaii Ironman, where the young lady ended up crawling across the
Hmm.
finish line.
I remember that.
And I saw it, but I'm old enough I saw it live when I
Wow.
just happened to be watching ABC Sports and I saw that event and it stuck with me. I mean, I didn't start triathloning for till 4 years later, but then when I started thinking about Ironman, I said, yeah, that's it. I went up to, well, the first thing was in Toronto. Then there was an organization that was running a race in southern Vermont uh, that had a swim run bike where the swim was like 2 miles and it was in New Hampshire, and then you biked, I don't know, 13, 26, something 40 miles into Vermont to Burlington, to Bennington. And no, you ran over to Bennington and then you got on your bike to do a 50-mile bike.
Okay.
And I was so slow that I was last on the bike. It was the last event. I was last, and I love this story too. The I was accompanied for the whole of the 50 miles by an ambulance from the local volunteer fire department because I was last. And the man, it turned out he was very funny because every time I got up one of the hills, he would say, "Okay, that's it. You don't have to worry about it anymore." Else he lied. He just wanted to be sure I got through the race. So, but I finished it, and the last hill was a monster. And I made it, and I made the finish like it was the 8 hour time limit. I made it like 7:56 or something. It's in the record. And I came back to the hotel room and I said to myself, I've done this. It's not an Ironman, but it's a pretty long race.
Hmm.
And I know that there's an Ironman on Cape Cod in September. And I'm going to send in an application. And if it gets accepted, I'm going to try to do it. Well,
Mm.
little did I know that, of course, like that very first race I did in Sag Harbor, anybody who applied got in. There were like 220 of us on Cape. So the bike was up to Provincetown and back, and I set up a schedule. And going up on the bike, I was ahead of schedule. I was way behind everybody else in the race, but I was on my schedule. I stopped
Mhm.
for a hamburger and a Coke during the race. There was a snack bar. I went over. I said, "I'm hungry. I gotta make." Yeah. So anyway, so I'm coming in on the marathon and I'm dead last, but I'm looking at my watch and I know I'm going to make the 17 hours. It turned out it was 17:43.
Mm.
And I tear up every time I tell this story. The last few hundred a mile or so you're running through on a path through a forest, and then you come around and there's the transition area. It's a parking lot. They started playing Chariots of Fire.
Oh,
And then that last race in Asbury Park, same thing. And I said to myself, this could be it. Uh,
you're a champion. You're a champion. You're a champion and ambassador of the sport for sure.
so
I wanted you on the show today. Uh,
thank you. Thank you so
Truthfully,
much for saying
the
that.
sport has
Really.
grown so big. There's so
Yeah.
many
Oh,
people in
oof.
it, and I just think that your passion for it and your dedication to it, and it's just important. It's an important story.
Yeah, I mean, and that, the next summer, I I was going to race. There was a very nice race outside of Princeton, New Jersey that I'd done several times. But I was having what fortunately turned out to be my last of three cardiac arrhythmias that I each one operated on.
Right,
But the night before the race, the heart was going blip, 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 and it would stop. And
right.
that was my experience. And I said, "You've done an awful lot of races." And that's a very easy one. I mean, it was a half-mile swim in a warm water lake. It was like swimming in a bathtub.
Mhm.
And I said, and I'm a doctor. And I said, Doc, you do not want to be out in the middle of even a half-mile race and have an arrhythmia.
Right.
So it turned out that last duathlon in Asbury Park, that was my last one. And in the fall of that year, that was 2019, I had to have that particular arrhythmia operated on, and then came COVID.
You're a smart
And I
man.
said,
You're a smart
okay,
man. Well, you're smart. You had the wisdom from your medical training and
yeah,
just
and
from probably life to know.
all the 230, 257 races. Okay, that's fine.
But that's a big lesson to share through this episode is you knew when to pull back. And
Oh, I was
and as heartbreaking as that might have been, it was the
it-
right
well,
decision.
well, it wasn't heartbreaking because I had done so many races
Okay.
and I knew that the racing career was going to come together sooner or later. Now, I had done, I mean, I had ambition to go further than that. I have, you could get to worlds as an amateur, the amateur worlds, because each nation had 16 slots in 5-year age groups for the worlds every year.
Mhm.
Well, by the time I got into my 60s, there were never close to 16 guys who had started when I did in the early 80s. So
Right.
if I wanted to go to
Stuck
a
with it.
worlds, I went to a worlds. And
Right.
I remember this, but I see this. I went to Hamburg, Germany, which was a terrific race and really flat. I mean, flat. And uh, you set your things up transition area, and then I walked up the transition area. I wanted to see who's older here. There was a man in the 90-94 age group at Worlds in
Really?
Hamburg. And I said to myself, okay, I'm going to aim for that.
Hmm.
But when I had that last race, that's one I'm not going to make.
Hmm.
Another triathlon related goal, which I may or may not make, I'm gonna have to have a lot of luck. At that International Masters Games, right? That's the name of the organization, International Masters
Right.
Games, Portland in 1996. The week before, they had a track and field at University of Oregon. I mean, Nike. I mean, uh, and for some reason, that second week in Portland, one day, and I'll never forget it, there was a headline in the Portland, Oregon, I think it's the Oregonian, I think it's called. 101-year-old man sets the age group world record for what? The shot put.
Oh, my dad was a shot putter.
Is really,
Yeah, he was how do you say it? All state from Maryland, state of Maryland. He was first in the
really,
state
wow.
for shot put.
Well,
Yeah.
well,
That's a
I
tough
could
sport. At
even
101,
back then, huh?
that's a tough sport. It takes a lot of
Yeah, it's a
strength.
very tough sport.
At
And even back then,
101,
I couldn't have lifted the shot up.
yeah, he was first in
But
the
I said,
state.
okay, I want to get to racing when I'm 101. Now, I won't, obviously, that won't happen, but I still have my eyes set on I'd love
Well,
to get to 101. My mother lived to be 95. Her mother, I've always fond of saying this, my maternal grandmother was born in the 1870s and lived to be 96 years old.
that's incredible.
So I've got the age stuff and we'll see what happens. I'm very grateful that I've lived
But
as long as I
you got
have and
double,
healthy,
double
and
one.
I thank you. And, I, I, I have the only age related, fortunately, well, I've got short-term memory loss, but uh, I've got a balance issue. So I have to be very careful. And I mean, I haven't ridden the bike outdoors for a very long time. I have an indoor bike in my basement. And then my lady has a second home in Amagansett on the South Shore of Long Island. And in the gym there, are you familiar with the device called Total Gym? The Total Gym.
Is it like a
It's a
equipment?
it's got two vertical bars, and
Oh,
then it's
right.
got a track.
Everything's
and,
kind
and then you can set at different heights, and it's
of.
you've got a slider going. I have a Total Gym out there, so
So
I
so
do
you're,
30. I'm
go
doing
ahead.
my 30 minutes 5 times a week.
30
That's it.
minutes, 5 times a week right now.
Yeah, 150 minutes. That's the
Yeah,
minimum for,
ACSM.
healthy exercise, and I eat right, and
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm lucky. I've got good genes.
So let me just say this to our listeners. Like Dr. Jonas just said something, 150 minutes a week.
Uh,
That is an American College of Sports Medicine exercise prescription. So if you're
yes, yeah.
interested, that's how smart you are. If you're interested, Google American College of Sports Medicine. That's like a minimum. kind of recommendation,
Yeah.
exercise
And
prescription.
I was one of the people who introduced that to ACSM. I was one of the early, I like to say founders, certainly consultants for the exercises medicine book that I ended up being co-author for. I was one of the first people to start talking. Yeah,
You're probably in here,
while I'm in there.
or one of them.
Yeah, but there's an earlier version of that. That's the
Oh, we
fourth
have it
edition,
over
and
here.
I was not involved with it by that time. But the first edition, I was co-author of the first edition, and I was one of the I don't know how they found me, but I was one of the first. I mean, really nice trip. They called me out to meet with them in Indianapolis. I was out there for a couple of days. Somebody had given them my name. It may have been Don Ardell, who's a dear friend of mine, about, the whole concept of exercise as medicine. And they were developing this program, which they called exercise as medicine, but they had the strength people, the training people, but they didn't have the health promotion person.
Hmm.
How you use it as part of a health promotion program.
Hmm.
And so they invited me to Indianapolis, and that's how I became, I have it over there somewhere, the first edition of Exercises Medicine, which I co-authored.
Hmm.
Um,
Such an
uh,
important platform for
oh,
education for people to understand
it's
exercise is medicine. I mean,
exercise is
it's
medicine.
medicine. It's not
You
complicated.
know,
Just think about the words.
yeah, and the thing, one of the things, I mean, you've read my stuff, and one of the things that I like to say, do what you can do what you like to do. I couldn't go fast. I just could. I was never able to run or bike or swim or anything fast. But after that very first race out in Sag Harbor, when I said, this is fun.
Fun.
And it was a sport that from the beginning was open to everybody. I
Mm,
mean, there were eventually, they were eventually in those essentially recreational races where the fast people were going fast, and there were medals and first, second, third, and great. And uh, the races had to have time limits because of the roads and the swimming and, the local
right.
authorities. That,
Right.
but the time limits were set because of the requirements of where the races were being held. Not that anybody from our side, from the sports side, you know Tim Young, you've spoken to Tim, right?
Mm-hmm.
With
Mm-hmm.
ACSM Young.
As a resource, yes.
I'll tell you, I have so many Tim Young stories, but I'll tell you one of my favorites. Um, uh, that they never ACSM for the recreational ones, they never set time limits. It was if there was like, okay, you got 4 hours, you got 5 hours, you got three and a half, whatever. That was because of how long the course could be open.
Right. The
Okay.
roads and whatnot. Hmm.
But I'll tell you, I have two very important membership numbers from the sport. The first one was in my second race. After that first race in Sag Harbor, September 17th, 1983, I was so excited. I said, let me see if I can find another race this season before the season's over. And of course, there was no internet or anything. I don't know how I found it, but there was a race on Long Beach, New Jersey, which was absolutely ideal for me because it was totally flat.
Well,
So I did
yeah.
this race and I finished the race. And of course, I was either last or next to last, but I had a great time. And I'm in the transition area, and I picture this because it was such an important part of my life. I look over there, and there's a little table with a gentleman sitting behind it, and there's a sign that says New York Triathlon Club. And I've been a joiner ever since I was a kid, I said, New York Triathlon Club. I mean, I'm from New York. I got to join that. So I went over, I met this one. Do you know the name Dan Honig? Honig?
I feel like you've mentioned
He's
that name to
gone from the New
me.
York area for some years now, but
Yeah, you've
he
mentioned
was
it to me on a call.
absolutely central and essential to
Hmm.
the creation of triathlon, duathlon as a sport for the New York City area.
I
And
think
Don,
that's the name that was, remember I asked you earlier about a name with duathlon? I believe that was who I was thinking of.
no,
Yes,
that's right. Dan
yes,
invented the duathlon. He came up with this idea. That was Dan Honig.
yes.
He came up with this idea of having a version that could start earlier in the season and end later in the season without swimming. Okay. And I and Dan are pretty sure that, I mean, he set up the race and I did it. That it was the very first one. It was at an old naval air station just to the west of JFK Airport on the south shore of Brooklyn, called Floyd Bennett Field, named after a very famous World War One aviator named Floyd Bennett. Uh, it was pouring, and I did it, and a lot of other people did it. And of course, it was a terrific race because even though it was raining, it was flat. It was an airfield, so it was absolutely flat. And Dan and I are pretty sure that that was the first ever duathlon. And then it was called biathlon in those days. Do you know why the name was changed from biathlon to duathlon?
You shared this with me once. I can't remember something with the actual
Olympics.
Olympics. Yes, I
When
remember.
triathlon became an Olympic sport,
Yes.
triathlon became an Olympic sport for the 2000 Olympics in Sydney. They said, look, you have to change the name biathlon because biathlon is a winter Olympic sport, the cross country skiing and shooting sport. And that was no problem. So I probably Dan came up with, or somebody said, okay, so instead of Greek bi, we'll have Latin do.
Can
Uh, it's just literal. Um,
I ask you one
but
quick question? I don't,
many,
this what
sure, as many as you want.
the numbers, don't you have one of the very early numbers? You were saying something about
That's what I'm getting.
oh,
That's what I'm
sure, go
getting.
ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, my membership number in the New York Triathlon Club is 366. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to drive two cars. So the license plate for one of my cars is NYTC, New York Triathlon Club 366.
That's
I had no
amazing.
trouble getting that plate. No, but the other plate is USAT 3271, which I got before USAT was USAT. It was called Triathlon Federation.
Hmm.
And in a correspondence recently, I shared that number with Tim,
Hmm.
and I guess I'd never told him, about it. I mean, why? He said 3271. That's lower than my number.
Sorry, it's so loud.
A joiner, So I have these two license. Yeah, but it was Dan Honig, and the New York Triathlon Club is still going strong. It starts in the spring, goes into the fall. There were races, there were duathlons, there were triathlons off Rockaway Beach, and also there's a very interesting triathlon that I did many times. That there's a lap swimming pool at the north end of Central Park.
Hmm.
It's 3 feet deep. It's a lap pool.
Okay.
And Dan came up with this idea of doing a triathlon in Central Park
Really?
using the pool. And he was very persuasive. I mean, he got the cops to agree to all kinds of things, and he got the Parks Department to agree to this. But and I did that race a number of times. It was really fun. A couple of good hills on the bike though, and the run.
Is he still living?
I don't know. He moved to Florida some years ago. I'm on a wonderful uh, birthday card service called Jackie Lawson. It's from
Mhm.
England. And I send him a birthday card every year. I haven't heard back from him for a couple of years, but
I
who
should,
knows?
well, maybe I can help you figure that
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. But
So
no, another funny
go
story.
ahead. I want to ask you a question when you're done.
Okay. Um, everyone's, I mean, 3 foot deep, right?
That's, yeah, it's not very deep for a pool.
No, but it was a lap pool, so swimmers
Yeah,
can
you
swim.
float, right. Yeah.
Every once in a while, a non-swimmer would get in the race and walk because it was only 3 foot deep. So they had instituted a rule: no walking.
No walking.
No, but I mean, I still belong to NYTC, and I correspond with them, and I was there at the beginning.
You really
Uh,
were. You were at the
and
beginning for all of it.
I was at the beginning for lots
For
of
all of
things.
it.
Triathlon, yeah, book and it's it's a major part of my life, and I have to. I'll just say, since we have that opening there, I did several firsts on the professional side too. I mean, I created the very first textbook on the U.S. healthcare delivery system, the one that's still in print. I wrote the first book on medical education reform. I co-authored that book, which was the very first of its type for American College of Sports Medicine, exercises medicine. And I like being first in that sort of stuff. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, and I feel that I'm at least one of the firsts in triathlon because I've done so many of them for so many years,
Hmm.
you know, and
And that's a
it's
good, that actually leads me to my question.
sure.
So I really wanted to give you plenty of time to talk about it because it was such a big part of your life. It was
Yes,
a long period of time. You did 256, did you say?
200,
A
either
lot.
56 or 257.
Okay. The level of
Depends how you count.
the level of detail that you, and this has always impressed me on our phone conversations because you're so consistent. The level of detail is incredible and your love of the sport. And I
Uh,
think, and we've had multiple conversations where you've said to me, you know, I didn't care if I came in last. I just had fun. I loved it. I enjoyed it. So my question is, and maybe it's just that simple. What kept you in it all those years? Was it?
what kept me in it was
Hmm.
what was in the sport from the very beginning,
Hmm.
which is it's a sport for everybody. It's a sport that you do at your speed, and if you can have fun going at the speed you can go, it's the sport for you. We are open to everybody. For fast people, there is the competition, and
Hmm.
that's great. And if you can go fast, and if you can win an age group medal, that's terrific. Now, as it happens, as I got older
That's
and the
right.
number of people in my age group dropped
Right.
off,
Right.
I started. I mean, I have a wall covered with plaques. I probably have. I mean, I did 257 races. I probably have 150 plaques down there because I would cross the finish line, and there were three or fewer people on my age group. But the point is that I mean that was very nice. But that's not the real thing was being able to do it for so many years
Hmm.
and all the friends that I made for so and then the friends that I would meet once a year when I went to nationals, and it just it's
You loved it.
it's I loved it, and it's a very friendly sport. I mean, you go and you see somebody who you saw at the last year. How you doing? How's your training going? You still having fun? That's it. And of course, that's how I met Don Ardell, who
Hmm.
was one of my closest friends.
I have to
We
get
haven't
see if I
seen
can
each
get
other
him
in a
on the
long time.
show.
Huh?
I'll have to see if I
Pardon?
can get him on the show.
Oh, you do.
I know. I'll see.
Oh, you have you had him
Maybe
yet?
you can help me. No, I
Have
haven't
you?
yet. No.
Oh, you Don. First of all, he's a wonderful speaker. He is a great storyteller. He's been doing the sport forever. Um, his major career achievement is that from somebody else's book, which he always give credit to, which had never gotten any publicity, a book that was written in the early 1960s called High Level
I
Wellness.
have it done, done, Halbert Dunn,
Yeah, Albert Dunn.
Halbert Dunn. Hmm.
Albert Dunn. How did I remember that? Oh my God.
I know, wait.
But Don saw
Me
the
too.
book and
Mhm.
he went to Dr. Dunn and he said, I would like to kind of take this national.
Mhm.
And Dr. Dunn said, give it a try. And Don took it and created modern high level wellness starting in the early 1970s.
That's
And
important
he's
information.
very, very important. And then along with everything else,
I have it over there somewhere.
he happens to be fast.
Oh, right, because didn't he come from he was a runner,
Oh,
I
he
think.
was a
He was a
runner and
yeah,
he
competitive
is
runner. Hmm.
he was a competitive runner and Don loves to win.
Hmm.
And he's got lots of winners medals from worlds and certainly local races. And he well he's got a knee problem so he doesn't race anymore, but he's only what 88 7.
Another
Um
incredible.
we talk on the phone on a regular basis and but yeah, he Don made a tremendous contribution to the health of the people in the United States. And then he's got an international reputation. He used to go to international meetings and he was a speaker and he knew people in wellness all over the world. And I mean, he still has a very close friend who lives in Perth, Australia, which is as far away from anywhere as you can get because Perth is on the other side of Australia.
Well, let me ask you this question because Dawn, like yourself, you are the original health promotion leaders. You really
Yes.
are. I'm not just saying that to make you feel good. I mean, all you need to do actually for the audience is go on ChatGPT or Google or wherever you need to go, or Google Scholar, PubMed, put these names in. These are the original, this is the original thinking behind high level wellness, health promotion, exercise is medicine. And I was blessed and fortunate enough for my path to cross because of my dissertation research. That's why. And I'm so grateful for that. And so, it's just it's it has grown so much too. So,
Oh,
but it's so important to remember where it all started, the foundation of it all. And I'm sitting with a gentleman right now that is
thank you.
part of it.
Thank
So
you.
here's my question.
Okay.
What can you say to people from all of your experience, medical, professional, academic, athletic? How do you live your best life? How do you get there? How do you age successfully?
Well, the
And I know it's
first,
a big question, but take your time.
no, but the first part of aging successfully has to do with luck. In
Okay?
other words, you have to have good genes. You have to, the only way you can age successfully is to get older successfully, starting when you're young. So that, in terms of healthy eating, um, healthy exercise if you can do it, but from the beginning, but you can always add that in. And I didn't start doing it until I was in my 40s. Then, very important, not smoking, not drinking, and certainly, not using the other recreational addictive drugs. Um, and so the first is the luck of the genes. The second is healthy living in the way that, Don started the whole movement, and the zillions of books I've written a couple of them, but Don's was and still is. High Level Wellness is the most important book. And I think followed by, I've been associated with it for some years now, but I don't exercise is medicine at least was at the time a very important book. And you've got the fourth edition of it, so they're still
Well,
doing
I
it.
have a few of them over here.
And
Yeah.
and that's very important.
Mhm.
Uh, but then the next thing is to be successful, pick a sport that you can do.
Hmm.
So, in other words, I have, from childhood, I couldn't hit a ball with any kind of instrument, with any, whether it was a baseball bat, a tennis racket, a golf club. I couldn't do that. So, I couldn't put the basketball in the basket. And when I went to high school in the 50s, the sports were all around some kind of ball. So I didn't do sports. I mean, in my high school, which was a very small, very special, very wonderful high school, which had been founded by John Dewey in 1914, they didn't have soccer. If they had had soccer, I mean, and when I was a kid, I was fast. I mean, for some reason that left, but they didn't have soccer. So it's finding something you can do. And the first sport that I found that I could do was just by luck when two guys in my medical school class didn't have a car and said, "How would you like to go skiing?"
Yeah.
And I
Amazing.
found the sport, that very first sport, and I fell in love with it from the beginning because it was a sport I could actually do. I didn't have to hit anything. And I took a lot of lessons. And then, eventually I became a certified ski instructor. Um,
Does it, just real quick, for the American College of Sports Medicine, that 150 minutes a week, if that's the minimum?
I would say that, yeah, I would say I'm not sure. I mean, I know that originally came out of Don's book of Out of High Level Wellness.
Oh,
Where
interesting.
that
I know that.
I believe it did. You've got to talk to
Detail.
Don. You've
Okay, I
got
will.
to interview Don. And
Yeah.
believe me, if you think that I'm not shy, just wait until you get to Don and you can tell
Okay.
him I said that.
I will. It's on this, it'll be on this episode.
Um, Ask Don where 150 minutes a week can,
Okay.
because I don't know. I used
Okay.
it,
We used
and
to
I used
joke, a friend of mine in school, Dr. Heineke, and Mark, if you're listening, we used to joke as we were going through school. We used to say everything, make like studying or writing, and we always say for 150 minutes. Everything was
Well, yeah,
150
I
minutes.
mean,
It was just a
I wrote,
joke because
as you probably know, I mean, I wrote the first book on walking for exercise, for regular exercise. That was,
yeah.
pace walking, the balanced way to aerobic health. And I had the 150 minutes in there. That was it. I'm not sure where I got it from, but
But if you could we just started to joke like everything, because every exercise prescription was reinforcing that, and we'd be like, "You better read tonight for 150 minutes." It was just funny. We used to laugh all the
right,
time. Okay,
right.
let me ask you. This is the last question I want to ask you.
What?
I well,
The last?
before we start talking again,
Yeah.
I am going to give you the final word after the last question.
Okay.
What what would you like to say to the future generations of triathletes, the younger people coming into the sport?
What I would like to say is that as long as you can swim at some reasonable pace and safely, keeping your head out of the water, if that's the way you swim, which is the way I do, as long as you can ride a bike safely and anybody can run, it is a sport that you can do because it is wide open. The races are wide open. The many races have time limits, but they're very long time limits. And races love to have anybody who will come and pay the entry fee. Uh, well, hey,
They got
come and
it
race.
it takes
And
resources to
and
put
and
these
it's a
events on.
sport,
Hmm.
certainly in the local races. Is there competition at the high end? Of course there is. There're going to be a group of people in every age group who can go fast and they want to go fast. And they if they're younger and they have to compete to get a medal, they'll do it. It's probably still the same. I mean, I haven't raced in quite some time now, but it's probably still the same way that if you get into your 50s and 60s and you're going to local races, you finish, you're going to get a plaque.
Hmm.
Actually, I take that back because there are so many more people in the sport now than there were.
It's
But
changing a
that
lot
doesn't
more
apply.
older. And that's the other thing
It's gotta be that your goal is to cross the finish line within the time limit and have fun doing it.
yes, and it's changing because that was one of the reasons I really wanted to have this conversation, not only to talk about your remarkable career, but to just say that aging can be, we don't have to fall into ageism, which says as you get older, it's this period of, everything gets it's decline. Like you can push back, and sports participation and athletics can be a huge part of that, to age with
Oh, absolutely. Well,
vitality and good health.
I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be looking and talking like this if I hadn't done,
Yeah.
hadn't been a regular exerciser for 40 odd years.
And you're still
A
doing it. You're still
triathlete for
exercising.
37. And, um,
Like,
yeah,
so let me, as we, th thank you for this. This was a
thank
gift
you
for
too.
all.
It's
This
been
is a
just great.
gift. Well, this is a gift for all of us. And I want to give you the final word. It's funny because I think I said almost all, I don't know how intelligent I sounded today because every other word out of my mouth was amazing, amazing, amazing. Anyhow. It's a pleasure to have you on
Thank
the
you.
show. And I want to give you the final word, and then I'll sign off.
Triathlon is was and still is. Triathlon is a sport for everybody. It doesn't matter how fast you go. What counts, and there is accounting, is crossing the finish line. And for me, it was always crossing the finish line, as I was fond of saying, happily and healthily.
Mhm.
Every once in a while, there was a race when I was whipped at the end. I was totally, oh my God, I'm so glad I made this. But most of the time, I ran within myself. I ran within my ability. I mean, swim, bike, run. Uh, I was out there to have a good time and to hopefully cross the finish line before the time limit. There were a couple races when I didn't make it, but if you're in this sport, there's always another race.
Mhm.
There's always another race.
Hmm.
And that's what kept me going for 257 races. And last thing, I'm not sure about this, but if it hadn't have been for COVID, I mean, COVID brought the end, that was the end of my career because I just couldn't get back after a couple of years off. But I mean, I didn't get COVID, but you're out of training and stuff. But if it hadn't been for COVID, I might have gone even longer. But still, I made it into an older age group and I'm 257 races, and I just had a great time.
I have to do it, and I can't even sing very well. You ready?
I'm ready.
Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Right? You, yes, that movie. Everything about it.
That movie was a fabulous movie and especially important for me because I'm Jewish. And and but I hear the melody as and I see myself coming down the boardwalk at Asbury Park, and for some reason the young lady who was doing the music put that music on special.
Yeah, makes me cry too, actually, Dr.
Yep,
Jonas.
yep.
Well, everybody, there you go. We're going to see you at 101.
I hope so. We're going to
Okay.
try.
We're going to do another episode. And I don't think there's much more to say. I think
Good.
you said it all. You
Anytime,
said it all.
listen, let's stay in touch. I mean, not this way, but
Well,
obviously we're going to stay in touch through the email. Yeah.
absolutely. I'm going to sign off. Don't hang up yet. I'm just going to say
Okay. I'm
goodbye.
not hanging up.
Okay, don't hang up.
I'm not hanging up.
Okay, everybody, you got to meet Dr. Stephen Jonas. If you didn't already know his name, I wanted to make sure you knew that we had a real pioneer with us today on the PhD Journey Unplugged podcast. And so grateful for his time, grateful for our audience. And this will be back soon, bringing real stories, real conversations with people who really know how to live their best lives. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.